Hello, everybody, and welcome to this live session. So we are going to give a tour of the new Arduino IDE 2.0. This is a huge project that kept us busy for the past 2 years, so with a full-time team. And believe me, rewriting the IDE from scratch is a very ambitious project. So why did we do it? So we wanted to implement new features, but for that we needed to move away from Java, which is getting obsolete, and we wanted to move to a more modern stack. The IDE 2.0 includes some new important features, and we will see them in this presentation, and an overall better coding experience. During this year, we released 12 beta versions, and a few days ago, we finally removed the beta label, announcing the first release candidate. What does it mean? That in a few months from now, this IDE will become the default choice for all the Arduino users. So this is why we need your help, your eyes, your hands, to test it and to spot all the issues before we do the stable release. But I don't want to steal more time, so let me bring the first guest to the show, Ubi De Feo. Ubi is a creative technologist at Arduino and the product owner of the Arduino tooling team. Hi, Ubi.
Hi, Alessandro. Thank you for giving me a bit of stage. Hello, everyone following. I'm just here to show you the work that we've been doing. I know that many have already downloaded the IDE 2.0. We got a massive amount of feedback on GitHub, in the forums, and like many bugs have been resolved thanks to the community. So now it's almost time to give it to everyone and to get more stuff. I'm usually the guy that people get angry at when something doesn't work, and I'm very happy to be this recipient of good feedback and bad feedback, because my job is essentially transforming what the community wants into features of this IDE. And it's it's big shoes to fill. Let's just say it.
Ubi, before leaving the stage to you for your presentation of the IDE, I want to add just one word. The IDE is open source and it's free for anyone to use, even for non-Arduino boards. It's a massive effort we are doing because we believe in open source, we believe in community, and this is also financially possible thanks to all the people who buy original Arduino boards and make donations. Otherwise, this would not be possible. So a big thank you to all of you, because you are the people who are making this possible. Remember to write your questions in the chat. We will answer at the end of this presentation. And now, Ubi, over to you.
Thank you. All right, so I would like to share my screen in order to show you this product. As I said, many of you already know this. People have gotten excited about, the fact that it has some new features. And I mean, we know the new features that are possible thanks to the backend that we have, and more on this later. Francesco is going to tell us more details. But essentially, I have an IDE which is very lean. It's based on web technologies, and it works with every board that is supported by the Arduino framework and infrastructure. The main changes that we have, of course, maintained everything that is familiar to the vast majority of users. So you can simply just jump from the old IDE to the new one, but we have implemented new things. You will see icons on the left, and this is one of my favorite because it allows me to basically see all my sketchbook. As you may see, I have a ton of sketches that I work on, and this is because, my job is making this thing work better, and I've been in Arduino for many years. But I can also use my remote sketchbook, and I can work on sketches that I have on my Arduino Cloud account. So basically, I can work on this computer, but I can go to my laptop and just log in and use the same sketches, and I can retrieve changes and push changes. This is something major that we have done over the past few months, and we use it. So it's something that we want people to use more and more. I have a sketch open here, but first, before we get into the coding, I want to show you some other pieces of the interface. The very famous board manager that we always had is, also as a counterpart in the sidebar. We wanted to make this more modern, and we have, we can look for, I don't know if I have STM32, for instance, and I can install new cores. Like Alessandro was saying, every board and platform that is supported by the Arduino ecosystem will work in this IDE. We have a library manager, and well, I was just looking for our IoT Cloud library, and oh, my name is here. That's funny. And essentially, I can install more libraries that are available through our library ecosystem, which is incredibly big. And you can find libraries for everything made by every manufacturer for every possible module that you have there. We introduced a new search functionality, which basically allows us to search within the sketch. So if I search for long, I can see every instance of long and I can directly jump to it. Let me see. Anyway, it's very useful if you are looking for code. If your project is larger than the average project, sometimes it can be very hard to find some stuff that you can find. All right, so let's go to edit this file. One major improvement to our IDE is that now we support language server capabilities. So I can include a library, for instance, to work on I2C devices. I can include a library that does I2C, and it gets, for a moment, you see that wiggly underline. That means that the IDE is basically calculating what kind of information are available. So making sure that it can fulfill every type of operation that is related to that library. So for instance, I can just say wire.begin, and then I can assign an address to my Arduino board, 03. And then wire, and it can pre-fill the completion. And I can just say, begin transmission. And I'm going to transmit to a device which is at address 0x69. And then I can write to this address, so I can send data to my device. And I'm just going to say, 00, wake up, let's assume. And then I can read from my device. Read bytes, and I want to read 10 bytes. So as you've seen, there's a squiggly line, and then it's going to compute what it needs. I think I forgot something here. Let me see. Read bytes. Still calculating. I have another keyboard here, so I'm not very comfortable with it. You see at the bottom, it's indexing, because every time I write something in here, it's basically recalculating what it might need. So essentially behind the scenes, it's sort of recompiling your file to make sure that it can provide you with completion. So I want to read 10 bytes. And I'm good. This will read my 10 bytes. And in the meantime, it's going to do some other stuff, building the sketch, recompiling. This sketch is essentially just something that I want to use to demonstrate another feature that we have added to the IDE 2.0, which was missing during the beta, during most time of the beta. And this feature is the serial plotter. Okay, so the serial plotter will start, and this is like an extra application. So my sketch is set up so that it can receive a command, and when I send this command, it's going to start pushing data to the serial port. And this command is A. And you can see that it's plotting data. I am plotting several variables, and it's going pretty fast. I have a safe delay of 10 milliseconds, but sometimes I just push data through at maximum speed. And what I can do with this, you can see that there is this pink line, which is time, and it's basically going up every second. But what I can do with this new serial plotter compared to the one from the Java IDE is that I can decide which variables I want to show. And I can do something even nicer, which is I can pause. Essentially, I stop the graph, and then I can go over my data points, and I can see the values. So let me open this normalized noise, which is normalized at 85%. Then I have this slope, which is another random. Then I have the time, and the time when I click it, it shows me that it's 52, right? Anyway, so what I can do, I can interpolate the data, and there is a very simple interpolation algorithm. If I remove the time, I can see it better, and I can still hover. And the moment that I click run, it's going to start running again. And then I can send, while it's doing this, I can send the command back to the board, and I can say, stop sending me data. I don't need it anymore. And then I can do it again. Send me data again. And you see the time is going up. So what I can do, I can just close this, and I can start it again. And when I restart it, the board will be reset, because that's how the Arduino works. And then I can push data again. What's really interesting is that this one connects to a data socket. So I can have the serial monitor throw the same data at the same time, unless you have your Mac connected to a hub and your board is not seen anymore by the system. But essentially, it's very well performing. We are extremely proud of the work that has been done, because you can go at much higher speeds. I'm now using an Uno, but we do this with the Portenta as well. What we think is that with more time spent on this, we have quite a lot of ideas. This can be used like a very basic, essential oscilloscope. If you play your cards right, you can have analog data pulled in by your Arduino board, and you can measure analog values. You can measure waves. And you can see it's really, really fast, because we have rewritten the serial monitor entirely. And Francesco and Alberto have done some incredible work on that part of the IDE. And I mean, this is basically what we have been doing for the past couple of months. It took a while, but the serial plotter is something that we're really, really proud of. And I don't know, I think I've showed you most of the stuff that I wanted to show today. Demo effect included. Oh, we also have something really interesting that we didn't have earlier. I mean, we've released it in the beta, but you can use the Arduino IDE to upload a new firmware to your wireless modules. And this one has a backend that essentially always pulls the most recent version of a wireless module, so you don't have to wait for a new release of the IDE. We're trying to work towards a point in time in which we have this IDE to suggest updates to the users, not just in matter of libraries and boards, but also updates of the IDE itself. As we release the stable version, we want users not to have go and check, hey, is there a new version of the Arduino IDE? Have they changed something? We're going to try and push new technologies and new features toward the user. And there's just a new dark theme coming your way. I'm not going to tell you more than this, but it's going to be nicer. And yeah, that's about for the demo for today.
So, Ubi, to recap, we have seen a new serial plotter with many abilities, selecting data, very fast plotter, and the ability to see the data content at the same time in the plotter and the serial monitor, a number of other improvements. Then we saw the auto-completion and the language server features. And then shall we also say a couple words about the debugger and the debugging features we have?
Yes, I don't have a board for debugging here.
We can even just mention the feature and show it in the interface.
Yes.
I see some people in the comments who are asking for this feature, and this is one of the major new features of the IDE 2.0.
Definitely. When it comes to the debugger, basically we decided to not to write it from scratch, because that would be insane. But we use a very stable debugger module for it's a VS Code extension. Thea supports VS Code extensions, and that's also part of the possibilities that are added to this IDE. If you like are comfortable with that kind of stuff, you can find the ways to introduce new plugins, and it's going to give us some sort of expandability. The debugger, essentially, we still have just a couple of platforms which are supported. It requires some work from the platform developer. And for now, we support some debugging, so ARM debugging. You can use microchip eDBG, you can use JLink, you can use Blackmagic Probe. It's just a matter of configuring some special features. So right now we have an implementation that basically allows every user to override the default debugging functionalities. So parameters like the adapter, like the microcontroller target, but to implement debugging, so to make it available, you see now I have an Arduino Uno Mini selected, and the debugging feature is not supported by the Uno because we did not implement it, and debugging AVR is pretty weird. But we have a user on GitHub that essentially found his way around it and is debugging the Arduino Uno with a debug wire interface made with an FTDI adapter. So we really leave the chance to the user to basically hack their ways into it. And this is what has made our Java IDE extremely popular and flexible. People could just get into the open source code and they could introduce new features. And this is why we have some features, such as the serial plotter. The serial plotter was not initially in the Arduino IDE, but it was added by the community. So it's we want to try and achieve the same thing.
So to answer some of the questions we are getting in the chat, this is not a preview. This is the IDE 2.0 that you can download right now. This is why we need your help. We need your feedback. You need your eyes to spot all possible issues, bugs, whatever you notice, because we want to make this IDE simply perfect. And we also, by the way, we also need positive feedback if everything works properly and you like it. So if you go to the Arduino website and you go to the software page, you scroll down, you will see the future version of the Arduino IDE. And from here, you can download the IDE we have been presenting during this chat, and then you can try it. And there are a few ways to provide feedback. If you follow the links we are going to post in the chat right now, you will find a link to a form, a very simple form, where we ask some feedback about your experience with the Arduino IDE. But then you can also go to the Arduino forum. You will find the link in the chat where we can have discussions about ideas. I'm seeing many interesting suggestions in the chat. And if you feel more advanced, you can jump directly into the GitHub repository where the actual development takes place. And from there, you can go into the issues section and participate in the development discussion. And also you can interact with the developers, with the other members of the community, and you can even browse all the open issues to decide to work on one of them. And you can contribute your code directly from GitHub because we need your help. This is open source and it's a collaborative project that couldn't go on without you. There is also one more thing you can contribute, which is the translation side. The Arduino IDE is known to be translated in tens of languages, and you can contribute also there. If you follow one of the links we are going to post right now, you will go to the Transifex platform where the community can work collaboratively on translations. As you see, we completed the Portuguese translation and we are almost there with German translation, but we need some help to complete all the strings in the other languages. So this is one more way to jump in the project and contribute. I would invite Francesco from the tooling team, Francesco Stasi, to do a presentation about the technical choices inside the IDE 2.0 and its architecture. Francesco is the lead developer of the team working on the development of the IDE 2.0. So he will show us how the IDE works internally.
Yeah, thank you, Alessandro. Hello, everyone. I'm not sure you are able to see my screen yet. Just let me know when you are able to. Okay, so yeah, I just want to give you a quick overview on the IDE2 architecture and that it works under the hood. It's going to be just one slide, will be super quick. So first of all, the IDE2 is an Electron application. For those who are not familiar with Electron, it's basically a wrapper that enables web application to run cross-platform on Windows, Mac, and Linux, which is pretty cool. So the IDE2 is based on TIA. This is an amazing open source project that is extensible and customizable. In fact, everything in TIA is an extension. For example, we have the Monaco editor, as you can see here, which is a text editor that you use to edit your sketch file. We have the i18n, which is the module that Arduino contributed to that enables the localization in the editor. And we have actually dozens of extensions, including one dedicated to run VS Code plugins, and the one on the bottom of the page. And this is particularly important to us as we decided to provide the language support to files via language server that can be used on both VS Code and obviously the IDE2. Yeah, but another example is the Cortex debugger, which is another VS Code plugin which we use to place breakpoint in the code. But yeah, back to the art of the Arduino editor, there is a special extension which is called Arduino extension. Not much of a fantasy here. And it basically empowers TIA, adding all the Arduino features that we need, as well as our iconic look and feel. The Arduino extension basically provide everything that the end user needs to work with the files. And we do it in a way of providing modules that we also call contribution point. For example, the sketchbook is a big contribution point, the library and the core manager, the serial plotter, the firmware uploader, and many other actually, like the compile and upload. But how we do this? Well, basically, every one of these modules, or let's say the vast majority, has two parts. A front-end part, which is written in React.js, which is responsible for customizing the view, displaying special widgets, creating panels like the dedicated serial monitor panel that we will show you in a moment, hopefully. And there is also a backend, which is written in Node.js and TypeScript, which is used to manage the IDE2 internal state, but more importantly, to talk with the CLI. And the CLI, which is actually outside of the perimeter of the IDE2, it is very important because it holds the whole logic to communicate with the board, and it is decoupled from the IDE2 application. Backend of the IDE2 and the CLI communicates over gRPC, but I don't want to go too much into the details. The good thing is that you can actually start using the CLI even after you are familiar with the IDE2, and this is probably one thing that the most advanced users are interested into. So yeah, that's basically it for the architecture overview. Obviously, you can find way more details in our public repositories on GitHub. Those are the main ones, the IDE and the CLI. And yeah, that's it from my side. I will turn it over to Alessandro. And yeah, let me know if there are questions about it.
So thank you, Francesco. Quite a technical presentation, but I think that many people were able to follow you. And so, if you have more technical questions, keep in mind that the Arduino IDE 2.0 is based on web technologies, as Francesco explained. So it's much easier to contribute to its development compared to the previous Java IDE. So you can jump into the development with us, contributing your changes, your improvements to the UI, to the functionalities, and also the modular architecture that Francesco just explained will allow anyone to create sort of modular extensions like plugins, like additional features that will enrich the experience of the IDE 2.0. This was previously not possible with the Java IDE. So this is an example of how we are improving the capabilities of the IDE. Now, I think we can now invite Francesco to join us again and start answering some of the questions we got in the chat. So, Ubi, this is for you. Do I need to reinstall my libraries, or can I link them from the previous version? Because I have a lot of them.
Okay, that's a really interesting question. Thank you. So essentially, no, you don't have to do anything. The only thing, if you have a custom, if you have chosen to have a custom path for your sketchbook, which is where the libraries reside, so there is sketchbook and the libraries folder inside, then you will need to just open the preferences in the new IDE and say, this is my sketchbook. And from that moment on, all the libraries that you have before installing IDE 2.0 are going to be there available for you.
Okay, so will there be a Linux version?
Well, it's there. You can already download it. We made it. We use it. Most of our team members are Linux users, and it's actively developed on Linux. So just go and download it.
And tell us if it works on your distro and how it works like. So, and one more question. Can you clone sketches from GitHub?
That is something that I do all the time. So if in your sketchbook you enter one of your sketches main folder and you do git init and then you add the remote, you work remotely on your single sketch. But many users have the whole sketchbook be a Git repo. So you can just say, go into your sketchbook folder, git init, and from that moment on, if you are talking about Git, you know how to use it, and it doesn't change. You can have your sketchbook on a remote server if you know how to do it, how to map it, or you can have it on iCloud. I mean, some people inside Arduino have it on iCloud, but for instance, like I have some of my sketches on the Arduino Cloud platform, so I can work on my Arduino IoT Cloud sketches from every computer. So I mean, it's really your choice.
So there is no conflict between the IDE and the command line Git client. The IDE does not provide a Git interface, but you can use your command line tool. And by the way, the new IDE, if I'm not wrong, refreshes the editor automatically, unlike the previous IDE. So it's much more convenient to work on the command line because you will see the changes reflected.
And that's why, and that's how Dropbox broke my sketch.
One more question. I don't know if it's for you, Ubi, or Francesco as well. Can you manually set the axis scale on the serial plotter rather than auto scale?
I can answer that. Not yet. So
okay,
we are planning
this
on.
Is something, this is something that, for instance, someone from the community might want to contribute, because I think they can go to the GitHub repository, learn how the serial plotter is coded, and propose their UI for it. One more question. Does it work on Apple M1?
Beautifully. I have a new M1 Max that I got a few weeks ago, and it works amazingly well. It works in the Rosetta 2 translation layer, but trust me, it's much faster than the i9 I had before.
But today you're not a good testimonial regarding your computer.
No, this is the Mac Pro. This is not my M1. It's another Mac.
All right. One more question. Someone is asking whether there will be a Linux version for ARM64.
Okay, I can tell you that I have built this IDE on a Raspberry Pi 4, and it worked, but not every platform's tool is available for ARM64. So it depends on the platform distributor. All our tools that we develop inside Arduino, we release ARM64 versions. But for instance, some other platforms such as STM32 don't necessarily release the tools for ARM64.
Okay, so if you're interested in this, you can go to GitHub, and I suggest to open a discussion there, and so that we can work together in testing what works and what not, and we understand if we are ready to make an automated official release for ARM64 as well. This is exactly the kind of help we need from the community. One more question: what kind of bandwidth does the serial plotter have?
I think this is more for Francesco.
Yeah, actually, there is no hard limit on the bandwidth of the serial plotter. We spent a lot of time to remove any cap from the plotting application itself. So basically, we aggregate every message coming from the board, and we plot fast enough so that you should always have 30 FPS in order to look it smoothly. So yeah, there is no bandwidth. It's actually the bandwidth from your board.
So basically, if I recall correctly, as a bonus, we also got a new feature on the command line, because we are now able to see the serial output from the command line tool. Is it right? In the CLI, do we have this?
Yes. The CLI now has a monitor command. Yes.
Now, one more question. Has it got a print option in the menu now?
No. No, that's a hard answer. I know that some users want to print their code, but nowadays, like there aren't many people with printers in the world, and we haven't really concentrated on this. It's in our backlog, but if enough people ask for it, there might end up being a print.
Yeah, so please jump in GitHub and provide your use case, because we were interested in understanding why would you want to print from your IDE, but then if you need it, of course, we need to implement it.
Look, I remember when I was younger, I loved to print code and debugging with the colored pens, but I haven't done that in a long time, and actually now it has a debugger.
There is one more question. I'm not sure I understand it. Can you create a log file recording CLI?
Can you create a log file recording CLI? Maybe
yeah, if you can maybe explain what you mean better. Maybe you mean if we can have a log file with the full trace of what the CLI is doing in background. Maybe that's what you mean. So in this case, what was the answer?
I don't know. Honestly, when I had to record the CLI, what I've done, I've used ASCII Cinema, and basically I was just running the CLI and recording the output. So.
Oh, now there is a very interesting question for anyone coding a lot of time. Is there an autofill function or error correction? So someone who basically does Arduino for you. No, I'm joking.
Well, actually, there is autofill. I've showed in the demo that there is autocomplete, and when you select a method, it will basically complete the method and highlight each of the parameters of the signature, so you can just fill one tab and move forward. So for me, that's enough autocompletion. I don't know if there are any harder requirements. But yeah, there is.
No, yeah. I noticed that someone asked something more about the debugger, whether it supports step-by-step debugging.
Yes, it does. Essentially, depending on the support of the platform. So let's say that you are using an Arduino Nano 33 IoT, that's a SAMD21. We develop it, we enable the debugging. You can use Atmel EDBG or a J-Link. And when you stop on a breakpoint, then you can even jump into parts of the framework. So you can see all the headers. You can really go deeper. But for instance, when it comes to platforms such as Embed, we do not, we only release the headers. So you can't really jump into everything. And that's because the Embed framework is gigantic and it would be gigabytes on the user's computer. But you can definitely step into, step out, step over. Everything that you would do debugging works. And, looking at registers as well. So...
yeah, so please help us test this. I forgot to mention one thing. If you go to the docs website, you will find many tutorials already for this new IDE. I'm going to share it to show you. If you go to docs.arduino.cc and click on IDE 2.0, you will find several tutorials, including tutorials about debugging. So if you follow these steps, you will be able to try the new debugging features and to learn how to do step-by-step debugging. You see the breakpoints, you learn how to change a variable while the sketch is running, and so on. So please test it and help us understand if it works for you on your boards and whether it is how you would need it to be. Now there is one more question about an interesting topic. This user is saying that sometimes they are forced to use multiple versions of the same library because they need to sometimes refresh some older Arduinos, older projects with older versions of the library. Is this something we can do to help this person to organize their workflow?
All right. The short answer is not yet. The longer answer is that months ago, I myself worked on a proposal, so an RFC, request for comment, on our GitHub. We have a GitHub for all our RFC documents, and it was basically addressing this issue. So how can I guarantee that 5 years from now, my project can be rebuilt exactly with the same versions of the libraries, of the platforms, and everything? In the upcoming months, we will be focusing more on this particular subject because we want to make sure that the users can sort of freeze a configuration that will always build their sketch as it was last built the last time it worked. And this requires some rework of the platform, still managing not to break anything prior, because the beauty of the work that we do, and actually the pain sometimes, is that we have to make sure that every new feature that we introduce does not break anything below Arduino IDE 1.5, which is when the big changes happen. So you will be able to do this first in the CLI, and then after it works really well in the CLI, we are going to bring it to the IDE with a easy to use user experience and a simple way to select which exact version of the build you can compile. So it is coming. It's a lot of work.
So we are getting close to the end. So let's take the few final questions. This is very advanced. Is there any integration with Xcode?
Well, you can write your own integration for Xcode because the CLI is basically what's behind the curtain. And if you take Microsoft has built a plugin for VS Code that uses the CLI, so you can do the same. You can just write your own scripts to use the CLI and get JSON data out of it and see what comes back and build and upload. I use it from the command line all the time. I really like the command line. So
let's take the last question, and this is probably the one that was asked the most in our chat. It's a big question. Is there a dark theme?
Okay, there is a dark theme which came with Thea, we kind of banked on it, and we kept using it. Many users use it, but our team has designed an exquisite Arduino proper dark theme, which we are going to introduce before the final release. So it's beautiful, and it's something that really fits the aesthetics of this IDE.
I think this is good news, and the best way to close this webinar. Please jump into the discussion, try the Arduino IDE 2.0, provide all the feedback you can, positive feedback, negative feedback. Let's collaborate to make this IDE perfect. So thank you, all of you, for staying with us. Thank you, Ubi. Thank you, Francesco, and also thanks to our colleagues, Lucrezia and Spanner, who helped us run this show. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Ciao.